Good evening, everybody. This is Bebe Davis, and you're locked into 1021 Magazine's reaction video to the sentencing of Alec Murdaugh. The sentencing will come from the Honorable Judge Newton. We will see in the sentencing the prosecution, the defense, the family sitting there in the courtroom, press, the media, my media family. I will be pausing the moments to give my POV. So the credits that I want to give is for USA Today. I am one of the top fans that does a lot of commentating on USA Today. And one thing I love about USA Today, I've just always been an admirer of how they produce content. And this was even before myself becoming publisher. They have been a part of my knowing some unbelievable moments, just like this case here that has taken worldwide attention for those who tune in. And I remember with USA Today, when I was working in corporate and in Charlotte, the Queen City, and I was, we probably was on like the 14th floor, and I had gotten in early, just to get my bearings and stuff. There wasn't a lot of people in the office, just a few of us. And then there was a breaking news that one of the towers was struck by a plane in New York City, and we're talking about 9/11. And I stood up and looked out from the office and see if anybody was seeing anything that I was seeing, and it was USA Today that I was, getting my latest morning headlines from, with my cup of coffee and stuff like that. And I knew by flying into New York as a child, spending summers in New York, traveling from the South to the North with, family that was there because of the Great Migration, when a lot of people were leaving the South and finding better opportunities, and so many reasons just leaving the South. And so a lot of people would just send, to like Chicago, Detroit, DC, Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York. Some would even go to California, Midwest, So I knew that by flying in, even as a child to adult, that no plane goes anywhere near Manhattan, nowhere near the Twin Towers. And so I knew that that was a problem, but it still didn't register. So then USA Today, they stayed on top of it. And by the time the second plane had hit, we were all at that moment being out of there as quick as possible, because Charlotte is known as a financial hub with the big banks at the time. And so by the time I got to my place, I just dropped bags and got in. And then I was on the phone with other friends and family and stuff. And then both towers went down. So that's why I always do my go-to with USA Today. So here we are. So I've given the credit. My POVs will be of facts, opinions, and allegedness. So we'll talk about it. I'll make my comments from there. And then from there, we'll be back with the whole Southern style psychological breakdown and moments of what I think about the whole dynamics of their, in my opinion, is more to be revealed and more than meets the eye. That's just me, okay, as a journalist and just as someone who knows that everything is just not what it seems, and everything is not just so cut and dry. And I believe wholeheartedly in the justice system. And I also believe that sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it partially right, and sometimes we need to keep pursuing discovery to get it as right as possible, if you have that conscience and if you have that morality. All right, so we're going to lower the music down here, and we're going to give the POVs. So thank you so much for locking in. So let's get started.
All right, Court is challenged.
Morning. Parties ready to proceed?
State's ready, Your Honor.
Bench is ready, Your Honor.
All right, from the state, Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're obviously here in the sentencing for the state versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh. Your Honor, I have prepared the sentencing sheets signed up. If I can hand those up to the clerk. Your Honor, very quickly, the defendant has no prior record, and the state has no victim impact people who want to speak at this time. But I will address the court briefly. And I don't need, Your Honor, to repeat the evidence that Your Honor just heard for the past 6 weeks, but it is overwhelming, and it shows this man to be a cunning manipulator, a man who placed himself above all others, including his family. A man who violated the trust of so many, including his friends, his family, his partners, his profession, but most of all, Maggie and Paul.
Okay. I want to pause right here because of just my my viewpoints. Again, I am, if you've been looking at the previous content here at 1021 Magazine, where I'm publisher and founder, I am a political science major, pre-law. Law, just didn't get the Juris Doctor. And I do come from a political family, come from a public figure family. And public figure people, the family, usually do not say we are prominent. That's others. That's the perception, and that's just the law of the land when people want to speak of people who are public figures. But what I want to say to this, it does seem like if you look at the history of Creighton Waters, who is the prosecutor talking there, him and Alex Murdaugh have a interesting dynamic relationship. Both of them are lawyers, even though Alex has been found guilty and being sentenced, disbarred. They both went to law school together, and I'm not saying that this is fact. This is a POV here. Sometimes when people see that you come from a certain dynamic of family, which is a dynamic for the Murdaughs, starting from one generational grandfather to the next generational grandfather to the next generation grandfather and the father, and seated in a county having the power, and they all just align as lawyers and then prominent. That can sometimes rub a lot of people the wrong way. These are POVs here. So you have people who say, I worked for mine. Pretty much you were just handed yours. I see a lot of angst here, and what I see here is that it's a great win for Creighton. But I also see that, let me stick it to you, I'm waiting to stick this to you, that's still alleged POV. That is not facts. But just sitting back, if you noticed, when he said he has much respect for the family, and the family did not want to give an impact statement, but I want to drive back home and telling, Judge, the honor, we've heard this for weeks. Okay, well, you won the case. Verdict in, now the sentencing. But it just feels like we're going to drive it home. But if you looked at the person in front, that could be a family member, in front of Buster and the uncle, that person, emotion was just like, very quick, but still noticeable, like, oh my goodness, here you go. Okay, like, enough already. And it just seems like they were under the same observation as I am. And I feel like a lot of people, from the comments we see out there on the board, a lot of people are not familiar, and I cannot speak for every public figure family or what people perceptions, and they categorize public figure families and families who've done well for themselves as prominent, because some prominent families are a pain in the ass. Okay, this is a grown person's channel, maturity, and others are not. But was any of us shocked at all about the family not giving an impact statement? I've seen it on the chat boards and comments on other people's podcasts and just on the boards out there, and then talking in social circles. That was not going to happen. And I wasn't shocked. Coming from a public figure family, when you're in a public figure family, a prominent family, you socialize in certain circles sometimes too. And the law of the land of that is, don't go against the family. And people who are leaving these statements like, I can't believe the family did, like they want the family to throw Alec Murdaugh under the bus. That's not going to happen. I can't see that right now. That doesn't mean that somebody may not go rogue. But not even from Maggie's family. And definitely not for the Murdaughs. Maggie's family is prominent as well. Do not go against the family. You could look at like the Godfather, where Michael Corleone tells Fredo, do not go against the family. Even his father said that, do not go against the family. You could look at TV shows, like Dynasty, Dallas, even though there were a lot of backbiting, Falcon Crest, but keeping it back to what I know, especially in the South and just Southern families, and then wherever you are as a prominent public figure family, you rake your people over the coals if you must, privately. And it's none of your business how we rake each other over the coals. But when we are public, we are unified. Don't ask me nothing. Don't think I'm going to be talking about my family member. They could be the black sheep, red sheep, white sheep, purple sheep, and we'll air them out. Fixing a highball or a glass of mint julep or a glass of iced tea. Throw a lemon in there. Over some key lime pie. But we are not going to rake them over the coals, and not this family. So maybe Creighton was feeling a little bit perturbed. This is still POV that, but I can't see how he would think that this family would want to do an impact statement. So it just seems to me like, let me just drive this home a little bit. But that little reaction that I saw with the person in front of Buster and his uncle, they were just like kind of over it. For the most part, you're going to see the family also have a poker face, okay? Because that's just the way it is. Do not let your emotions betray you. I think Alex has done an absolutely stunning job of doing that, because it is how it works. They tell you. It's a lot of stuff that they tell us. You know what I'm saying? Watch the company you keep. You better stay unblackmailable. People ready to break you down. Ours was more of a guilt type thing, like, you don't want to embarrass father. Don't you be the one. And I swear, even with my mom giving me a lot of free reign to do stuff, because the family was very stringent, especially with the girls, I was not ever going to let my grandparents tell my mother, who's now the matriarch of the family, that we told you so with Bebe. And it never happened. Everybody's perfectly imperfect. We all done our share of, oh my gosh, but never did they ever tell her, I told you so, or anything like that. So this family right here is going to have the poker face of a lifetime. And it's so good that people are asking, why don't they this? And why don't they that? Well, welcome to the world of why don't they? Even with like the Kennedys and stuff like that, they're not doing that. Because it's law. It's law of the family. It's law. And, you know, some people, you know, may not like that. But that's just what it is. And so, you know, the idea that you're going to get up there and make an impact statement. Oh my God. That will never happen. So now Creighton is going to go ahead and rehash stuff. And I mean, you can actually look at this man right here, not the one directly behind Alex, but the gentleman behind him. He is just like straight over it. He is, I mean, look at his face. Straight over it. But go ahead. We're going to let Creighton have his moment.
This is a very complicated situation, and I want to offer my condolences to the family that has suffered here. We have tried very hard to be respectful and sensitive regardless of what position any person took.
Okay, let me pause right here because I want to get it right. Okay. The man with the gentleman with the turquoise shirt, and I did say the man behind him, but he does look like he's over it. But the man behind him who's sitting in front of Buster and his uncle, he was a man that was just like, I am so over this. Even though the man in front looked like he's so over it too. But a lot of people have been trying to diagnose it and look at Buster with less emotions and with just the whole family. Well, I just feel like, listen, if they're anything like many of the public figure families, you know, we're not going to show that kind of emotion as much as possible. And I think they've done an outstanding job. And even through all the coals that Alex has gone through, he had his moments on the stand. But through this whole phase here, I think he's done an incredible job, because that's just what is inbred in everyone. And I don't think nobody believes for a second, and this is just the POVs, you know, you're being what they call genteel. Southern hospitality. It's like a bless your heart. You know, I'm driving it home. You know, that's putting a dagger even in the family, not just Alex. If you rehash it, everything. Excuse me. And I've had too many strawberries. I filmed early into some strawberries. But, you know, you just want to have your moment. Nobody's doing an impact. And, you know, they're just kind of waiting for the next phase. But, you know, it's just like, we're over it. But go ahead and have your moment. You're not going to break us. But go ahead and have your moment. And that's what it just seems like to me.
Because this family has suffered, and they've had to suffer in the public eye. And I want to offer my condolences to this family. I want to offer it for Maggie and Paul and Mr.
All right, so now you see this is straight chess, and this is how the prominent family works. He turns around, being grandiose, and he's saying, and I want to offer my condolences to the family. And guess what they did? They're like, we'll go ahead and play chess right with you, buddy. Okay? And so when he nods his head, we nod back. Chess. Welcome to Southern genteelness, ladies and gentlemen.
Randolph, too, who I had the pleasure of working with on one occasion. But the reality remains is that despite all this attention, this case is about Maggie Murdaugh and Paul Murdaugh, and I'm so thankful that the jurors gave them a voice. You heard about Paul. Obviously, there was the boat case, but you also heard him described as a fun-loving young man, a person who loved life, a person who would do anything for his friends, for anyone. And he's
all right. Fun-loving young man, given all the nice characteristics right there, right? But then slides in the boat case. If I was a prosecution, okay, because I'm not going to just be one-sided. Some of this I probably would not do. I probably would not slide in the boat case because that's so glaringly apparent that that's not going to go away and that's going to come up. But the young man is not here, to face that. So it's almost insulting a little bit because it's going to come up. The judge is even going to say, and it's part of the protocol, that despite what's going on, these other matters and cases will be addressed. So I felt like he didn't have to do that. It's just kind of like sticking it to him. You can see from this angle, they're over it. They are completely over it. But carry on, Creighton, carry on.
down as he was just starting to live his life. You heard about Maggie. You heard how sweet she was. You heard that she was a girl's girl who adapted to the outdoorsman life of her sons, how much she loved her sister and her brother-in-law and their children. And she was cut down in the prime of her life. Both of them, like everyone else, was unaware of who he really was. No one who thought they knew this man, no one who thought they were close to this man knew who he really was. And Your Honor, that's chilling. And I've looked in his eyes, and he liked to stare me down as he would walk by me during this trial. And I could see the real Alex Murdaugh when he looked at me.
Okay. Oh my God. Remember I was telling you they both went to law school together? And a lot of people look at prominent people and they look at public figure families and families who just have this illustrious history, no matter what you think about it or what you've heard, how they got to that illustrious history. It seems like there's a chip. There's a big chip right there with Creighton, okay? And it is now apparent how he stared me down. What are we doing here? What is this, like Mean Boys Club? What is this, your final? Oh my God, I got him. And it just seems very, very personal. And so now I'm sure the defense is looking at this like, okay, well, we are going to appeal this sentencing. And they already stated that. So now you got some things to kind of work with a little bit. Now, so what is this about here? He stared me down. That sounds so childish. It sounds like you have a chip there. It sounds super personal. And you know, you have to sometimes use the decorum. So then, here's a man that has a family that's not going to do an impact statement. You can forget it. They're going to do the chess moves, and they are going to do the poker face. And overall, he's done the poker face. But look at this little smirk smile that Alex is giving. Like, really? I'm found guilty. I'm still professing my innocence. My family's not going to shut me down with some impact statement. And you're talking about I stared you down. So then he's like, well, I really did get to him. Buddy, goodness. A lot of public figure families and everything like that, they already have tasks and goals set upon them that could be quite a lot of pressure to live up with. And this is not a pity party for Alex Murdaugh. Okay, because a lot of his timeline did not make sense. His son, with social media and with the beauty of social media, put him there and the timelines and everything. But there still was a lot of reasonable doubt that could he have done these murders, or could it be something more sinister? Did he have help? It's a lot of questions out there that causes for reasonable doubt. But the smirk just kind of says it all. I mean, this man is getting this sentence that's going to be like done and done. But the idea that you gave him even the nth of that he got under your skin when his whole world is just falling apart, that's enough to make somebody who could be narcissistic or just whatever have a smirk. And there's a smirk like, wow. But did I really stare you down, or are you overblowing it? But either way, you're making it look like I intimidate you. And I know that's probably not how Creighton wanted it to look. But it looks very chip on shoulder and just like, I earned mine when we were in school together. And you earned it, but you handed everything. You know, and these are just the alleged POVs. So, and then was saying the family didn't know that this was you. Okay, now he's overreaching a little bit too, because the family is not saying that. The family has not given no impact statement. They have not saying, I just couldn't believe that you killed Papa and Maggie, and you just not the person you portrayed us to be. They are Southern chess.
The depravity, the callousness, the selfishness of these crimes are stunning. The lack of remorse and the effortless way in which he lies, including here sitting right over there in this witness stand. Your Honor, a man like that, a man like this man, should never be allowed to be among free law-abiding citizens again. And I would submit to you that the only just sentence here to give justice for Maggie and Paul is the maximum, and that would be 2 consecutive life sentences. Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm just kind of glad.
All right, say it plugs it in. Perfect. We'll start the car. I need a tap to begin the scan. Now my 2000.
I'm just glad he didn't go any further than that, because now you're trying to put how you feel and what the family should be feeling, because that's how you feel. And the family, obviously, even if there is somebody that does feel that way, the code, okay, is do not go against the family. And, you know, don't have a chip. Don't have that chip. It's just very quite telling. Is that another story in itself? But one thing is for sure, Alex is not taking the bait. The family not taking the bait. Nobody is taking the bait right now, because what they're going to do along with the defense is seeing about getting this appeal and then seeing if there's more discovery they're just like the prosecution is going to see if there's more discovery for anything else per their press conferences. So everybody's going to be going after discovery and seeing what's what, because it is still a lot of people that feel like Alec Murdaugh did not do this murder, but that there's something even deeper going on there, just like what I heard on a few podcasts about the grandfather who brought in the wealth and who died on the train tracks, that some people said was very mysterious, that everything just wasn't what it seems. So for it to be fair and balanced, whether I was on the prosecution or if I was on the defense, I wouldn't be as grandiose, because we do know that there are a lot of murders, even now, that have not been solved, or some that has been solved, and people know that the person who's sitting in the jailhouse wasn't the only one that needed to be sitting there, or they took the fall because they wanted to save their family. So we'll talk about that a little later. Save their family from any more deaths. And so they had to be witness to this death and take that fall because of whatever injustices. You know, everything is not always what it seems, and I'm not giving anybody an out here. But, you know, I feel like if you're going to be on the defense or prosecution, try to keep it as professional as possible, and don't let your emotions get too into it. Save that for a book. Save that for papers that you may give to your alma mater if you write them, or letters, or interviews, or documentaries. But kind of hold it together in the courtroom. Okay?
You indicate that no victim would like to speak at this time. Would any victim like to speak at any time during these proceedings?
Your Honor, one of the things we did early on, obviously, as I just said, it's a very complicated situation, but we made the decision early on. We've had our victim advocate here, who's been doing a wonderful job, regardless of the viewpoints of any individual family member, to provide aid and service to them, and we made that decision. I'm informed by our victim advocate that none of them wish to speak. The defense can certainly address that, but that's what I'm informed. But they certainly were offered the opportunity as is required, and I want to commend our victim advocate on the excellent job she did in handling this complex situation that we wanted to be sensitive to, because again, none of us are not mindful of the fact of the suffering of this family.
I noticed Sled Chief Mark Keel is here. Would you like to address the court on any matters, Chief?
Yes, sir. Just to say again, very proud of our agents, the work they've done. I'm proud of the partnership that we've had with the Attorney General's office, as we've had for many years. And again, we're here to see the justice is served, and we believe it has.
Thank you.
All right. Now, the gentleman that just sat down, look, I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of what they did. We're here to seek justice, and that's all I need to say. Boom. Now, that's how you keep your emotions in check. You're being sensitive to the family because you already know what time it is. You know that that family is not doing no impact statement or anything. But it seems like, because in my point of view, that with Creighton, you can't get them to do an impact, and you now want to just show love to the young lady who would have been greatly there for them if they just give an impact statement. But that family right now is on Unbreakable. They are on Unified, and you're not going to be speaking for them saying that this is not the man they thought. Now, I'm sure there might be some others in there, but that family is straight stone face for overall, and they are sticking together. And so let's just move these proceedings over with, because you're not going to break that dynasty right now, as far as having them completely not rally around Alec. And not just Alec. Let's just think about this. They're going to rally around Bebe. Buster. We're going to rally around Buster. That's Maggie's baby. That's her boy. Even though Paul is the baby boy. But this is still Maggie's. this is an extension of Maggie's. I can see that from her side of the family. And then from Alex's side of the family, let's rally around Buster. That's what we're going to do. We're going to rally around him because his father has been found guilty. His mother viciously murdered. His brother viciously murdered. It is just all collapsible. So the family is in unity mode. And you got to respect that. At least I do, because I know that that's how my family would be too. We are on the shh, the southern shh. That's what we're on. So let's proceed.
For the defense.
Your Honor, Mr. Griffin and I would have no comment. The defendant would like to address the court, though.
Mr. Murdaugh.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm innocent. I would never hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never hurt my son, Pawpaw.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, so still, even through all of that, what has been said by the prosecution, the defense is not interrupting the prosecution. Of course, this is not the time to do that. Sometimes you could just keep talking until you just hang yourself, and people can start to say, wow, you know, like the points I'm bringing up. But he is still being respectful of the court. Some people could say, oh, this is just an act or just whatever. But he does know protocol. You could just bar somebody, but that doesn't mean that they don't know protocol. And then he's still saying, because that appeal is coming, and not everybody thinks that he killed him, or not everybody thinks he did it alone, or some people might think it might be a little bit more sinister, that, this could have been revenge kill for all of the drama that was surrounding a lot of people who were impacted. You're talking about the boat accident, a loss of life there. You're talking about embezzlement, loss there. You're talking about the housekeeper, the death. There's a loss there. They don't feel justified in all that, And so it's just so many dynamics, and it's so many enemy territories. And it is not far-fetched on a sprawling acre of land. And we in the South have seen this, many murders go unsolved, and people even know who the murderers are. And some people who will never find any closure, but there have been ambushes. And so you can't count that out. The evidence, testimonies, the juries felt that it was guilty, but still, the murder weapon was not found, the bloody clothes. Who has that stuff? And the way that you look at how the medical examiner, and you can take a look at what is out there publicly of how they were killed, and all of this is gruesome. Even like they say in the time frame, where is the time frame for him to have cleaned up? Where was the law enforcement that would do like the blood checks besides the blood splatter? Here you have an uncle talking about he's cleaning up the brain matter and blood and bone from Paul's vicious kill. So, that's a lot on that kind of scene. If you've ever seen that kind of scene, or like if you worked that kind of scene, if you reported that kind of scene, he didn't even have enough time to completely just get himself together like that. So what does that say? It is not far-fetched that somebody could have came upon them and had him be right there in the mix and be like, you take the fall for this. This is just perception. Okay, perception and POVs, and just a little bit of jumping the shark. It could have been two killers right there. People know how people move a lot of times, especially in small southern towns. They know a lot of times your routine, or if you come back into town like Maggie and Paul did, they could be like, oh, well, they're back in town. Too many enemies out there. And then the way these kills were done, how did he have time to get rid of these weapons? Where is the forensics on testing all the weapons that they had? But people know people's routine. Oh, this family, look, they hunt, they have a lot of guns. blah, 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 blah. Or, okay, we know their car. Okay, so they're there. Well, this is our time. Or you don't know if somebody who could have been over in Edisto and know that they were going to come, or any wiretappings on phone. Listen, it is not far-fetched to say, maybe, just maybe, because of what happened, it was like, and you go down. You go down. Because if you don't go down, it's going to be a lot more loss to your family. So you don't know what this is, but it's very interesting. And that's just, I know that's far out there, but I just wanted to put it out there because that's what a lot of people do. People who write mystery or do true crime and stuff like that. A lot of things are not what it seemed. Could he be taking this whole complete false and nobody else won't get caught up? You know, just a lot of enemies there with Paul, a lot of threats. You cannot ignore those things. But he's still saying, and he's still sticking by, that he did not kill his wife or his son. And someone asked, would he ever confess? I highly doubt it. If he did do this, and he did all this alone, which I still cannot see him doing all this alone, if he did do it. Or if he had to stand there and watch the executions, and then they were just like, you breathe any word of this, and we're going to take some more people out. I mean, you just never know. But right now, what he's doing, he is defending that he didn't do it. Okay?
Yep.
Anything further?
I don't think further comment is necessary, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Murdaugh, if you'll come to the court for sentencing. This has been perhaps one of the most troubling cases, not just for me as a judge, for the state, for the defense team, but for all of the citizens in this community, all the citizens in this state, and as we've seen based on the media coverage throughout the nation. You have a wife who's been killed, murdered, a son savagely murdered, a lawyer, a person from a respected family who has controlled justice in this community for over a century. A person whose grandfather's portrait hang at the back of the courthouse that I had to have ordered removed in order to ensure that a fair trial was had by both the state and the defense.
All right. Very interesting choice of words there by Judge Newman. When he refers to Paul and he said savagely cut down. See, that's the glaring vibe right there of could there have been someone else? Because savage, and the way that you looked at all of the autopsy reports and the medical examiner, his face was the only thing, thank God though, but that wasn't obliterated. But the back of his head was gone. That is a kind of anger. A kind of anger to just demolish you. Or two, if the mother was shot first, then maybe when he may have tried to go and run and grab a weapon and then the shot came and hit him behind the head, or if he, like the prosecution was saying, trying to get to her boy, Maggie trying to get to Paul, shot so savagely that when she tried, she could have been in straight mama mode, defense mode, that she was shot those several times. But the word savage, I just don't see that from him. But we've seen parents kill children. We've seen children kill parents. But you would think there could have been some kind of defense markings that was on them. So that's why it still hangs in the balance of, could there have been more than one shooter, or was this so far out of the depths of a lot of people's mind that this was a super hit, but saying, you will live and you will take the fall, or we'll take more people out. I mean, you don't know. But if I'm getting too close and warm, please don't come for me, okay? That's all I got to say. Then with Judge Newton also saying, your family has had control for the past century. Now, does Judge have a chip? You know, I can't, and no one can apologize for what your family was in history. You cannot change that. And when it trickles down, because they have fallen from grace, they've fallen, you know. But for that to be brought up, and that word control, your family has had control. Well, it's definitely not a term of endearment that he's talking about, but that he's kind of saying it in a way that of angst in my POV. This is just alleged, because I cannot speak for the judge. I cannot speak for Creighton. I cannot speak for anyone. I can't speak to the super situation, but I'm just kind of throwing these thoughts and ideologies out here. And then when he says that he had to move the portrait because they have been in power and they didn't want to sway the jury, well, that was a right, smart move to do. I think overall, Judge Newton has shown fair and balanced, but just like we all are human, if I was sitting there and this was my courtroom, of course you would do what you want to do in your courtroom, but I would still have some kind of decorum and be very careful with saying, I would have not said your family has had control. I would have just kind of left that alone, and I would probably just have said, you know, if you're going to make that statement, you know, how you've fallen from grace with your family having such a long tenure in law. I would have probably kept it as neutral like that as possible, because, you know, you got a lot of crazies out here, okay? And I got family members who are, you know, judges, senators, and all that stuff. I mean, you know, Lord knows, you got to be really careful what you're saying, you know, sometime. And so, you know, I think that the case is so high profile that they're so well known. I do feel kind of like what the defense is saying. Everybody has been swayed, and a lot of people feel some kind of way about people who have been the maidens. And then you may feel like, well, I have earned, and have you earned, or, you know, have you amassed a certain kind of whatever. But I just found that just a little bit like, oh, please, let's just come on back, Your Honor, and clean this up a little more, and let's not fall into, you know.
And I've sat through the trial. Not only have I sat through the trial, but also as the presiding judge of the state grand jury, sat through and participated in the issuance of search warrants of various sorts, bond hearings, and have had to consider many things. And we have this case, and I'm also assigned to preside over 99 others, at least 99 other cases. Though testimony has come up regarding many of those other cases, I will not make any comment with regard to any other pending matter, as I have been assigned those cases as well.
Good move. Whew.
It's also particularly troubling, Mr. Murdaugh, because as a member of the legal community and a well-known member of the legal community, you've practiced law before me, and we've seen each other at various occasions throughout the years. And it was especially heartbreaking for me to see you go in the media from being a grieving father who lost a wife and a son to being the person indicted and convicted of killing them. And you've engaged in such duplicitous conduct here in the courtroom, here on the witness stand, and as established by the testimony throughout the time leading from the time of the indictment and prior to the indictment throughout the trial to this moment in time. Certainly, you have no obligation to say anything other than saying not guilty. And obviously, as appeals are probably expected or absolutely expected, I would not expect a confession of any kind. In fact, as I've presided over murder cases over the past 22 years, I have yet to find a defendant who could go there, who could go back to that moment in time when they decided to pull the trigger or to otherwise murder someone. I have not been able to get anyone, any defendant, even those who have confessed to being guilty, to go back and explain to me what happened at that moment in time when they opted to pull the trigger, when they opted to commit the most heinous crimes known to man. In this case, qualifies under our death penalty statute.
Okay, I want to pause it right here. Now, here are some conflicting things, and it goes from, to me, in my opinion, from professional to personal, back to contradictional, to professional, personal, back again. All right, so here we go. In all the cases that the judge has tried, never has he this. Well, you already know, as a former lawyer, once a lawyer, always a lawyer, now in your honorable judgeship, that this defense is going to appeal. And you also know the lay of the land of the different people who are out here talking, and you got people who's going to be on discovery for the defense, that the law enforcement sorely did not find, as of yet, the murder weapons, the bloody clothes, or just anything that really, really sticks the fortifiable vibe of, can we soundly say that he did it? and then saying, well, I already know that you're going to not confess. But in all my times, this, that, I just felt like he kind of went off kiltered. And you're talking about you're not going to penetrate a family if they believe, or if he believes that he did not do it, or even though the verdict did go guilty, it still wasn't solidly proven. And even if I was the defense, I would still work, which they are going to do too, is get that discovery to really find those critical missing pieces of information to solidly say that. Because myself as a juror and myself as a judge, or just anything, I would not feel 100% okay, because you never know what the what if may happen. As bizarre as it may look on some TV movies, you may have somebody who comes forth and say, you know what, I did it. I did it. And here is the clothes, or the documents. I did it. I just have to unburden myself. I did it. I know these are far-fetched, but because you know that could happen, if I was the defense, if I would try and keep doing discovery to close that out once and for all, because that's still out there hanging, and it's glaringly, no matter what the jury had said, it's so much reasonable doubt because of how people work. And then with the judge, he comes from a prominent family. You know, he has the civil rights relatives that are well known. And the biggest thing with everyone, when you are of that stature, and even people who aren't, but we're just going to focus on that, because a lot of people are asking, why don't these people show emotions, or why don't these people throw him under the bus because they know he's guilty? It doesn't work like that. So despite him saying that in all his years and this and that, I mean, the Murdaugh family is just a family, just like a lot of other families, just like the Kennedys, of the world, just like a lot of prominent families, the Rothschilds, even Queen Elizabeth II. Never complain, never explain. That should just tell it how it all works. So you're not getting that confession or anything like that. And then with Judge Newton speaking, the defense, when they had their press conference, they said he was swayed by the Netflix. The jury was swayed by the Netflix documentary and all these other documentaries, and how high profile this case is, and people's strong opinions on everything. So they felt like it was tainted. So I felt like, yes, it was well within his rights to say, yes, you've fallen for grace, but it's like between the judge and Creighton, they're trying to get him to do the opportunity of saying he is guilty. And believe me, we're still playing chess, and he's not going to do it.
Based on the statutory aggravating circumstances of 2 or more people being murdered by the defendant by one act, or pursuant to one scheme or course of conduct. I don't question at all the decision of the state not to pursue the death penalty. But as I sit here in this courtroom and look around the many portraits of judges and other court officials, and reflect on the fact that over the past century, your family, including you, have been prosecuting people here in this courtroom, and many have received the death penalty, probably for lesser conduct.
Now, what impactful statement there, which is factual. But it's your courtroom, it's your party, you do what you want to do. But I thought this was powerful too, because what he's saying, he's he's breaking down why he's going for the sentences that he could, but just saying it was still on the table. And your family, over hundreds of years, and yourself have prosecuted people for the death penalty for lesser than what you have been found guilty for. Being found guilty and actually saying you could put your hands on that you did it without a murder weapon, without those bloody clothes, just a lot of those things there, and that we're going to sit up here and ignore the fact that there were a lot of enemies, and you are not going to sit up here and, well, they did, but you can sit up here and ignore the fact that you could be on a sprawling acre, and people have had ambushes with just no acres. Okay? So that reasonable doubt is still out there, even if the jury didn't think that was the case. But I know if I was the defense, I would be hard-pressed to keep searching and searching until I could close that out, because it's always going to be out there. They can shut that out and get those weapons and get those DNAs and the blood, then that would just keep that reasonable doubt from being out there, and it would keep that red herring from somebody coming forward who just may say, I did it. Then what happens? He walks. They've got to secure those weapons and everything like that. The family, number one, didn't do an impact statement. There's nobody sitting there saying, you killed Maggie, you killed Papa, and you need to just die. We're going to never be the same. How could you? You did it. You did it. They don't have any of that. Nothing. And the family is not seeking that. And so I think the judge did the right thing. Yes, in bringing it up, but that's just conversation there and maybe trying to penetrate the psyche, which at this point, if he is dead set on saying, no, I didn't, and you still got those things out there that doesn't concrete prove that he did, because when you're talking about the timeline, his timeline talk didn't add up. The timeline of talking about you trying to clean yourself up in that little bit of time with all that blood matter everywhere like that, it just seems so far-fetched. It seems a little more believable if disgruntles came in there and they did it and said, you better take the fall, or we're going to take some more people out, or he had help. And then they took the stuff, but not a one-man show. I just can't see a one-man show with all that gruesomeness. And you talk about a young, strong boy and a mama bear mom, that nobody didn't get scratched all up like that. I just, it's just, but one thing is for sure, with a life sentence, let's just go ahead with the jury. If he did it, then he gets to spend the rest of his natural born life without the luxuries, without those opioids, even though drugs can be distributed through, jails and everything like that. But his whole life that he's ever known gets taken from him. And a lot of times we've seen in psychology where the person who does murders, they do, in their mind's eye, get to see some of those victims. Some people will just not admit to it, and some people will. I am very close to a lot of cases of domestic violence where the partner has killed that person, and they say that they see that person all the time. So when he is going to say that he does, it's been established that is the case.
Remind me of the expression you gave on the witness stand. Was it tangled?
Tangled web, we weave.
What tangled web we weave? What did you mean by that?
It meant when I lied, I continue to lie.
And the question is, when will it end? When will it end? And it's ended already for the jury, because they've
They want you to
concluded
confess
that
so
you
bad, but you're not
continued
gonna-
to lie and lied throughout your testimony.
not gonna do it.
And perhaps with all the throng of people here, they, for the most part, all believe, or 80, 90%, 99% believe that you continue to lie now when your statement of denial.
Okay, so it seems like the judge is kind of right there with the state, with the prosecution of saying 99. What is with this 99 and all these people believe that you're lying? We have to not use those mind games because the family is standing on no impact statement. We are here for him. Y'all getting it all twisted. We are telling the defense, y'all better get on it and let's get a defense. Nobody from that family is penetrating outside of how it goes. Do not go against the family, and we're not believing anything. So those statements are just too much. I as a judge, and if I was a defense, I wouldn't go there because you couldn't get an impact statement, not from nary one. That's a little southern thing. Nary, naren. You couldn't get nary impact, not from Maggie's side, not from the Murdaugh side. Let it go. You gotta let it go. You got the conviction. Obviously, it's obvious that y'all didn't feel some kind of more yin way toward this Murdaugh dynasty. That I can't say either here or there about it. But let it go, because that is a false statement there, Your Honor. And then again, you see the press conference from the defense saying that the judge seems like he was a little bit swayed or whatever like that. So if you keep talking in those terms, it may be where the defense could say, well, we need a little bit more unbiased judge here because maybe this judge could be too biased. Sometimes you just have to put on your poker face, stick to the things, and of course it's your courtroom. You can do what you want to do, but if you want to actually keep doing these cases that you already stated that you're set upon, don't make it so easy for the defense to say, well, now let's start picking this thing apart. Do we have a judge that's impartial or what is going on?
To the court.
Early payday, fee-free overdrafts, no monthly fee. Chime, the #1 most loved banking app.
Today has not just
Perhaps you believe that it does not matter, that there's nothing that can mitigate a sentence given the crimes that were committed. You know, a notice of alibi was filed in this case by counsel in November, and we conducted a hearing, pretrial hearing, in which you claimed to have been someplace else at the time the crime was committed. Then, after all of the witnesses placed you at the scene of the crime, at the last minute, or last minutes or days, you switch courses and admitted to being there. And then that necessitated more lies and continued to lie. And
which is true.
And I said, where will it end? It's already ended for many who have heard you and concluded that it'll never end. But within your own soul, you have to deal with that. And I know you have to see Paul and Maggie during the night times when you're attempting to go to sleep. I'm sure they come and visit you. I'm sure.
All day and every night.
Yeah, I'm sure. and they will continue to do so. And reflect on the last time they looked you in the eyes, as you looked the jury in the eyes. I don't know person who's always been such a gregarious, friendly person and cause your life to be tangled in such a web, such a situation that yours have spun into, and it's so unfortunate because you had such a lovely family of such friendly people, including you, and to go from that to this.
Now, this is, I feel we're going back to a little bit of pandering there, because we're not going to sit up here, just like he's saying, don't sit up here and say you changed your story or whatever. But we're not going to sit up here and act like a lot of people thought that Paul was just so endearing. People were pissed off that here's a young man, like a lot of us have done, getting a fake ID, underage drinking, and some parents supplying their children with drinks. We're not going to act like he was so wholesome, but he did not deserve to be murdered. That is the key thing. But come now, Judge, we're not going to sit up here and act like he was just not like a little wild card out there, and that people were pissed because a young lady lost her life. We can't sit here and pick and choose things, because we need to just say it how it is. I don't think I would have went for the whole character upper. I would have left that alone and just say, your wife and your son did not deserve this type of death. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Don't start swinging that pendulum when you know that people were high pissed, and I mean, you know, so still, through all these nuances, and he's not the only judge that does this. There's so many judges that have a wrangled good old time. I think he's showing a lot of restraint overall, you know, so I'm not trying to throw, you know, Judge Newton under the bus, because I've seen some real wrangle-me-dangle-me-doos out there with some of the judges when they are about to do the sentencing. And then, of course, hopefully we'll see his thought process of how he thought about the trial through papers, through interviews, through a book, if he chooses to do so, or on recordings that he may leave, you know, for history, that type of thing. You know, I'm a history type person as well, so I'm writing my memoirs, so I'm doing those collective things too, so people can get my points of view on the times of COVID, the times that I was vetted to cover many presidents of the United States with 1021 magazine, how I covered a lot of civil rights leaders and civil rights moments. You know, I even have an exclusive interview with the fifth little girl, the four little girls Alabama Street bombings, that I have yet to put out with Sarah Rudolph Collins, who was the fifth little girl in the church when it was bombed, and her sister was one of the four little girls. And I always kept saying, we need to get the history right. 4 little girls died on that Sunday, but 5 little girls were impacted on that bombing. So, you know what I'm saying? It'll be good to hear his thoughts, you know, through recordings, through papers, or through a book or something like that. That way we could just see those thoughts. But as of here right now, Alec Murdaugh is stating his innocence. A lot of that erraticness could be from opioids, and I hate that opioids are back at the center of things, because there's a lot of people who are very responsible with opioids because of the autoimmune diseases that they have, and you are in such excruciating pain that you take them, but you don't abuse them. But a lot of people who don't set out to abuse the opioids, sometimes they do get hooked, and sometimes that could be the chemistry of an addictive personality or addictive genealogy or just anything like that. But I just hate that it is vilified so much, because it does, we don't talk about how great it gives a quality of life to people who go through tremendous, excruciating pain on levels mere person could never understand. And we know that some of the side effects of taking the opioids is brain fog and all of that. I'm not giving no excuses here. I think he totally abused those drugs, and then it could have been some other drugs out there as well. But still, throughout everything, it would be great if the defense gets that discovery to find those weapons, find those clothing, find things as much as possible. That way you could just knock out anybody coming forward on some anything, and that you could just remove that big elephant of he didn't do it. Because there's a lot of people, if you look at the boards, that are also saying, I don't believe that, you know, he did it. I don't believe that he was alone, or, you know, that kind of thing.
You know, your license to practice law has been stripped away from you. You turned from lawyer to witness, and now have an opportunity to make your final appeal as an ex-lawyer. And it's almost, it's really surprising that you're waiving this right at this time.
Mental games.
And if you opt to do so, it's on you. You're not compelled to say anything. But you have the opportunity to do so.
Judge, I tell you again, I respect this court, but I'm innocent. I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie. And I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Pawpaw.
Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become when you...
Boom. And a lot of people are taking that very statement there and they're running their headlines. It could have been the monster that you become. That is a very, very prophetic statement, because a lot of people who are on different kind of drugs, they do change. The balance, the chemical balances make them change, whether it's opioids or it could be a harsher drug. You do have those changes. So that was very insightful. I thought that was on the money. But one thing I will say, he's still giving him the opportunity, and I take a little bit back of the mind games, but just giving him the opportunity to clear his conscience, because the judge feels like he is guilty. And so, you know, he's still saying, when I maintain my innocence, you're talking all this other stuff, even with this remark of the monsters. Okay, but that's your perception. You're trying to throw it into a perception type of thing. I'm not going to start salsaing for you all. I'm not going to do my salsa, my rumba, or my samba, but, you know, he's, you know, because I am Afro-Cubana. So, you know, he's giving him the opportunities. I think he's being as, you know, more fair and balanced as he can, you know, because it's clear that the judge is, you know, quite overdone with this, and that this is incredulous that you're going to sit up here with all this stuff and you still are going to maintain. But that is what he's going to do. That's just what he's going to do. Go ahead and sentence him, Judge.
Take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills. Maybe you become another person. I've seen that before. The person standing before me was not the person who committed the crime, though it's the same individual. We'll leave that at that.
Leave it at that.
Before announcing sentence on these cases, with regard to all of the other pending cases, Are any of them here in Colleton, or I'm sure some of them are?
Yes, sir.
Half of them, or?
I don't have that in front of me, but there are a substantial number of charges here. There's some in Hampton, Orangeburg, Beaufort, Allendale. There may be others that I'm not thinking of right now.
We might have worn out our welcome here in Colleton.
Colleton's been great.
They have been, and I'll take this opportunity to thank Sheriff Hill and
I don't even know
all
why
of
that
the
was
court
brought up,
officials and
about the other
and
cases.
really everyone I've met and dealt with while here in Colleton County. Just been great. But without any delay, we're going to schedule some of the other matters. I know Mr. Harpootlian's scheduling is complicated, and you've sacrificed quite a bit to be able to be here defending Mr. Murdaugh, as well as the Attorney General's office, with all the other many things and obligations you have. And to be able to have the Attorney General here, Alan Wilson, for the period of time that he's devoted to being here, along with everyone else, it's been quite a sacrifice. But there are other victims whose cases deserve to be heard. And this case has jumped some of those other cases. Perhaps jumped it because of this case resulting in an assault on the integrity of the judicial system in our state, law enforcement in our state. Even during this trial, the law enforcement have been maligned for the past 5 or 6 weeks by one who had access to the wheels of justice, to be able to deflect the investigation. And as the evidence is pointed out in this case, the looming storm that Mr. Waters talked about, I can just imagine on that day, June 7th, when a lawyer is confronted and confesses to having stolen over $500,000 from a client, and he has a tiger like Mark Tinsley on his tail, pursuing discovery in the case involving the death of Mallory Beach, and having a father, for the most part, on his deathbed. I could imagine, or really can't imagine, but I know it had to have been quite a bit
But you can't
going through your mind on that day.
object to that. There's lots of perception there.
But amazingly, to have you come and testify that it was just another ordinary day, that my wife and son and I were out just enjoying life. Not credible, not believable. You can convince yourself about it, but obviously you have the inability to convince anyone else about that. So if you made any such arguments as a lawyer, you would lose every case like that. Cases you will never have an opportunity to argue anymore, except perhaps your own as you sit in the Department of Corrections. Anything further?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Murdaugh, I sentence you to the State Department of Corrections on each of the murder indictments in the murder of your wife, Maggie Murdaugh. I sentence you for the term of the rest of your natural life for the murder of Paul Murdaugh, whom you probably love so much. I sentence you to prison for murdering him for the rest of your natural life. Those sentences will run consecutive. Under the statute involving possession of a weapon during a violent crime, there is no sentence where a life sentence is imposed on other indictments. That is the sentence of the court, and you are remanded to the State Department of Corrections.
Find the weapon. Find the bloody clothes.
And officers may carry forth on the imposition.
So you can really just close it on out. Okay? The family overall did a great job. I felt without showing any emotion. And
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He is going to be taken to Colombia, and he'll be there for so many days doing evaluations, and they'll be doing their press conferences as many tuned in to see the attorneys approaching the judge, and they will be doing appeals, the defense and the prosecution. They need to be on it despite bringing up these other moments. Because if I was the prosecution, I would not rest at all until I find those weapons. I would not rest until I find those bloody clothes or any more forensic evidence of discovery. And that's for the prosecution. On the defense side, I would be doing as much as I can for an appeal, and just playing the little advocate there. Is this judge still partial? Because, they said as much. I'm going by the press conferences. They felt like he was a little biased. So will they go for saying we want to argue the fact that we need to go for another judge, and do, with these appeals and all of that? It's a lot to take into consideration. But this has been my POV, and I don't want anyone to, you're going to think what you want to think, okay? But I wanted to make it clear that these are POVs. You have allegeds, you have facts, and it's been one of those cases where a lot of people just tuned in, and people will be talking about this for a while. Not only that, there will be, this case will be talked about in college settings, even high school settings, that could be of an AP style vibration. But I could see a lot of people in the college settings of political science and of history and of law and criminal justice and all of that talking about this case and what they feel about it and all of that. I am definitely one for justice. As I said before, we have a lot of justices in our family. We have a lot of senators in our family. We have, a lot of professional athletes in family. Myself as a publisher. We just educators. You just name it. We are a public figure family, and we know that, a lot of times people do feel a certain way about that. But myself, as someone who is a political science major and pre-law and all of that, I do believe in the justice system. I believe in the justice system wholeheartedly. It is not a shock for someone to kill their family. We've seen that over and over again, and murder their family. We have seen people go to jail for crimes that they did not do. And then years or decades later, here comes discovery that will exonerate them. My hope is that the prosecution can square up those loose ends, and if not, then the defense can get those loose ends and prove it another way, and that justice does come. This has been quite interesting, and so that's my POV. We will continue the Southern murder mystery type aspects and some interesting things that doesn't necessarily have to do with the case, but kind of parallels to it. So we'll talk about all of that. But one thing is for sure, if you have not had a master class in how a prominent family or public figure family or family, period, that doesn't have those echelons stick together and they don't throw each other under the bus, no matter what the prosecution or the judge is saying, here is one. This family has not went rogue, no impact statements, and none of this, they believe he's guilty. They have not opened their mouth to say anything. They were in that courtroom to surround Buster, Maggie's boy, and surround Alec, those who will. But it's a unified front no matter what they feel, even if they feel justice has been served. This kind of family does not air out their thoughts all kind of ways. Not saying that it won't, because somebody could go rogue and want to talk that talk. We've seen it before. But as of right now, I'm just telling you, as of right now, everything is on the Southern hush. I'm Bebe Davis. Thank you so much for locking into 1021 Magazine, where the motto is limitless and timeless. Thank you so much for subscribing and for visiting. We are the first full-featured digital lifestyle magazine in the world, founded by yours truly in the year 2002. My first celebrity interview was the one and only filmmaker William Packer, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and his line brother, my good friend Reggie, FAMU, put it together, and I got that interview. And of course, you know, this was when Packer was starting out his film career and everything like that. And now, you know, he's straight there Hollywood and all of that good stuff. So, you know, my life has been quite a blessing to go from different echelons, all because of a visionary dream. And it's been my pleasure to cover a lot of things that have been happening and to walk through the doors that I have been walking through when people said a digital lifestyle magazine would never, ever take off. And now look, everybody has an online presence, okay? Whether it's newspapers or magazines or businesses, everything is online. Hey, just like this trial, everything is online. So I would say to anybody for inspiration to, before we leave this very emotional moment, is that you follow your dreams, you be in your purpose, and never let dream killers sway you, because your purpose is a purpose for a reason, okay? And now in my 5th decade of life, at 52, it is just a beautiful pleasure to stay young at heart, but to walk through the doors that I've walked through, to cover who I've covered, and to make sure that I didn't betray myself. And to my ancestors and everyone who has gone on from here, and with both my parents still living and everything, I am my ancestor' wildest dreams, and I'm not their nightmares. And I know that in this incident with the Murdaughs, that cannot be said right now. But one thing I am optimistic about, because of your name, that doesn't mean that everything is down here from you, especially if your family name is fall from grace. It is always one that can rise it back up. You may be under a lot of public scrutiny when it rises back up, but you may be that one to let it rise back up. You know what I mean? All right, so anyway, let me get out of here. Look for some more of the murder mystery mayhem type vibe concerning the Murdaughs. And take a look at some of the great documentaries. I'll be listing in my next upload of some of the documentaries that I really, really enjoyed. I really, really enjoyed the ones coming from people who are from that low country and they have that insider in, other than gathering sources of information, because like, it's so authentic that they're right on the money, and it makes sense like that. So I hope that you enjoy this. I'm out of here. Have yourself a great, great Sunday and more to come. I think what I'm going to do is relax a little bit. I'm going to get me some more passion fruit juice, and I might get some cherry jubilees, and then I will put in Mrs. Marple. You got to love Miss Marple, right? So I think I'll put in that for the murder mystery and then go into Dreamland. Thanks for locking in, everybody, and have yourself, a great Sunday. Peace and love.